Translation. The powerful Kardamuni was the knower of everyone's heart, and he could grant whatever one desired. Knowing the spiritual soul, he regarded her as her own body. Knowing the spiritual soul, he regarded her as a half of his body. Krishna. I have 4 glasses, 4 eyes, and I still cannot see. Dividing himself into 9 forms, he impregnated Devahuti with the 9 discharges of semen. The purport is very short, very important. Since Kardama Muni could understand that Devahuti wanted many children, at the first chance he begot 9 children at one time. He described here as Vibhu, the most powerful master. By his yogic powers, he could at once produce 9 daughters in the womb of Devahuti. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. From the first verse, we understand one thing. While the couple who eagerly longed for the sexual pleasure. So somehow we heard mostly it was emphasized that Devahuti was more into the begetting children and so on. And Kardamuni was more like a saint, and his only condition was to stay in that marriage as long as children are produced, and then just leave it. Take sannyas, or vanaprastha, whatever it was, sannyas. But here says the couple who eagerly long for sexual pleasure. So that means that both of them had this desire. Since nothing happens by its own, they both were longing pleasure, not one. So that's a match has to be compatible. When the marriage has been organized, the compatibility is extremely important. Although we understand from this chapter canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that they were not the same category. Devahuti was, who was she was? Yeah, she was princess, It's difficult to imagine more exalted princess, Current princesses, some of them were being simple men. Even Princess Diana, who she was before. Nothing, practically she didn't have a proper kingly education or grown up, She was picked up by a prince and she became princess. So here we see the Devahuti, she was extremely highly born, and not just any king. She was the daughter of Manu, And the husband was practically beggar, on this. Not in the street, in the forest. In the street you can find something. What are you going to find in the forest? So he was a beggar. He was practically poor, outwardly poor. That's coming in up soon. But the compatibility was important, since they had this kind of inclination. How strong it was, it's not as important. There has to be something similar. So they have some similar goal or inclination or some nature which has to be taken apart, and they're usually parents. They are the best to judge it because they know the child from the childhood, when we look at our children here in Simhachalam, we can see, for example, the small son of Dirnitai and Hemangi, and like just you see, he's like couple years old, and straight away the nature is already brought out. One is smiling and running and happy all the time, and other one is trying to be nasty, to find some fights all the time, And third one is happy all the time, and when I put the feet on a children's head, someone is very tolerant. He's just like another one. And there was one Indian boy. He was beating up the thing, what's coming up. He doesn't understand, so he's trying to find it. So the nature is very important. So here we see that both the couple were interested in the procreation, and from previous chapters we can remember that the procreation was able to happen by creative powers of Brahma. In the first stages, he just created the mental sons, Probably he could have created mental daughters as well. I think that was having happened, And then he created, and then the next stage of creation would happen while the further intercourse, further coupling of the male and female principles like that. So here you see. So one thing is never happening to work out as a yogic fire, we know, in a yagya. This is a simple example, but one stick doesn't burn. Have to be two sticks. Although there is one Finnish interesting trick how they do. They take one log of the wood, just one round one, like this, and they cut it here and cut it like this, Happens to be like a hole. How to explain? Yeah. You have a log, and they cut it with a jigsaw, like this. Cut it here and cut it like this. So basically, it's one log, but it actually is divided in four. So they put fire inside. So the four things like this, they burn. It's interesting. There's one log sitting in there, and it's just like a fireplace. You can warm it up. So when you go to the Santa Claus, maybe not now, but one who goes to Santa Claus in Finland up north, they have this snow, completely snow, and there's one log sitting there, and you just warm it up, like this. So the principle of increasing population was more rapid due to this whole thing of male and female population going on further. So sometimes, interesting enough, we can understand that historians say that if the too much male population is going on, it's a prediction, it's kind of a sign, it's going to be a war. Have you heard of that? No? This is interesting prediction. If it's too much male population, that means, first of all, it's a rivalry, Another thing is, we can say that from the understanding how Srimad Bhagavatam explains, in which case the man or woman is born as a child, it depends on the passion of the man or woman, stronger. So if the passion of the woman is stronger, as we know, Devahuti, she was more into the whole thing, the girls were born. So if the man is too passionate, then the boys are born, So if the man is too passionate, what happens? They cannot live peacefully side by side. They have to compete, There's less women and more man, There has to be some competition, some fighting. That happens in the Swayamvara ceremonies, They usually either they have some special competition like shooting to the fishes or something. Sometimes they fight against each other, And the one who wins, he gets a girl, So therefore this population is important. So one stick is never born. This is one of the 5 points kind of I draw from this two verses. Another thing is quite interesting to understand is what actually. Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Simha Bhagavan ki jai. You can now pray for the special blessings because just now, what happened? Why the curtains are open? Well, he's eaten. Now he is very happy. You can ask him for blessings now. It's the best time to do it. So, other more important point is to understand what's actually the character, what's the definition, what is actually man supposed to be, like how to define who is a proper man, who is proper man, who is proper woman. And we always needed the role models. I can say from my childhood that was definitely very important for me to find out how to live a family life contradictory to one I had experienced. Although my both parents were, I would say, teachers, and I would say that kind of a Brahminical thing, right? Both are teachers and Brahminical, but amazingly enough, they were fighting. Not only mentally and in words, but sometimes real physical fights were going on. And they were never drinking, Even in the Christmas, they didn't drink, They didn't smoke. I had such nice parents. But from other point of view, they were not living peacefully. So Brahmanas also sometimes fight amongst each other. So for me, it was important to understand what is proper character, behavior of the man and woman, how they can live together. Is it possible? I had some kind of very convinced idea that it is possible to live without fighting. So, in order to understand that thing, we have to say that there is a strictly defined areas of that's a male and that's a female. So, the main principle of male from Srimad Bhagavatam understand that Krishna is the source of everything. So he provides situation, like any proper Vedic literature starts with creation. Just at least few words. So at least then everything we see around us, it's somehow directly, indirectly is created by God. So situation is created. Even material situation is created, Spiritual world is created, definitely by Krishna. So material creation is too. The mood, or let's say the mood, the spirit, also comes from here. Spirit, ultimate spirit. The goal, what we can achieve, also there is a coming from God. And also action, what can happen, also those four things. If we study deeper, all those things are connected to this for some well-known Chaturyuga. Chaturyuga, all the four names? Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aruda. So Sankarsana is situation. He gives the creation. Sankarsana. The mood, who would that be? Yes and no. Mood is more Pradyumna. Anuruddha would be goal. Yes. An interaction is Vasudeva. So all these things happening. At the same time, the female has the important thing of getting experience. Expression of those things. So there's a mood, there's a goal, but how it happens, it depends on a female principle. So also we have to understand a little bit of a subordinate principle. Although the masculine is a source to express itself, it needs a female part. So this is a male as a source and counterpart and a follower or the expression of it or expansion of it. It's a female principle. But it has to follow back. At the same time, there's a feedback also from male. So this interaction is actually everything that happens because everything we see around us, it is Krishna and his energies, basically, the male-female principles. So sometimes when you imagine the principle of the male who is a, classical I would say, movie or tough guy, Western cowboy, ruffian, he's a real man, macho. Somehow, when we study a little bit deeper, he doesn't have a deep relationship. He shows up, he goes to a bar, like choo-choo, but actually doesn't have even girlfriend proper, Maybe interact for some while, there's girls here. But proper girls don't want to marry those guys, That's a very important thing. And Prabhupada used to say, the Vaishnava, he's gentle. And what does it mean, gentle? Gentleman, proper Vaishnava is gentleman. Gentle, it means not be ruffian, strange enough, So how is that compatible? Arjuna, was he gentleman? Or ruffian? He was gentleman, especially after Krishna inspired him. So fighting itself, many times we can understand, it doesn't mean he's Kshatriya. If you give a gun to the man, mafia guy, he's not Kshatriya. He's a killer, maybe, or mafia guy. Yeah. Having gun in the hand or a weapon in the hand doesn't make you Kshatriya. Kshatriya means one kshatraya, one who frees yourself or anyone from ksha, from the sufferings. Traya, mantra, manastra, frees your mind, and kshatra means frees you from suffering. So if the person is inclined and desirous to free yourself from the suffering, that's a gentleman, that's a proper one, Prabhupada said, if you see someone walking in a path and following path and falling into a hole in a ditch, normally would be like, stop, where you going? So Vaishnava, when he sees everyone following the material path and rejecting your own natural self and following some kind of temporary dream, he says, come on, what you doing? That compassionate, gentle nature, it is a proper for any soul. Any soul, proper, reasonable soul has these qualities. So, but we have to understand these are qualities of the sattva guna at least, right? So we are souls, In that sense, we are a little bit of a female nature. I know. I might mention one of Maharaj. He was very, very tough on saying some things, but sometimes the guru, he's sharp, Sadhus are sharp, and he said, because we are all souls, all interaction between us is like lesbians. We try. One is pretending to be man, and another one is man. Actually, basically, it is true. Digging deeper, because we reject our spiritual nature, whatever it is, we're becoming impersonal because we are trying to interact with the matter. Is one stone trying to interact with other stones. So. Although the mind, we can say, okay, mind is very nice, but still, it's a completely material, non-personal, dead matter. So even the mind is acting in some way, doesn't make it more alive. So only the alive element in all these things, it is the presence of the soul. So therefore, we have to understand these things. So, in interaction, proper interaction here, we can see, in the first thing, Kardama Muni was sensitive. So, the quote from beginning of the chapter, seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. So affection, due to her service to the husband, he was overwhelmed by emotions. He was very thankful. He was very compassionate. And that's a principle of man, which is usually unimaginable that man has to be sensitive, Why? Why has to be, All the emotions, that's a woman's area, she is emotional. And he is man. And it is also true that even brahmacharis, those brahmacharis who are very tough, very, very tough, they don't stay brahmacharis for long, somehow. They get a little bit of a similar nature, tough girls. It is an interesting point that, as we said, the female is following the man. So, saying in a soft words, if you see the woman who is behaving like a representative of canine family, you know the word. That means you as a man are the female canine dog. So if there is Bhaktivedanta Swami said one example that after war, all the guys, tough guys, they kind of want to enjoy themselves and are a little bit independent and stuff like that. And that was a time when the whole feministic movement also appeared. And we are dependent, we can do the same, stuff like that. So always, if you see the great man, will be next to him great woman. So if you see next to yourself a woman who is not very good character, you understand she's following you. It is a principle. So here we can see perfect example, and we need these role models, the stars, the characters which to follow. So if the man is sensitive to the conditions of the woman, then woman is respective to his ideals and missions. So also we understand that if we talk, usually, most of the time, we talk about Kshatriyas and Brahmanas. Why would that be? One of the explanations.
Because the Kshatriyas were pious kings doing sacrifices and also knowing the scriptures.
But why they are pious?
There are more possibilities and responsibilities.
Yeah, but why would someone follow responsibility? Why would someone do the responsibility? Why? What makes him responsible? Power? No. Power doesn't make responsible. Power sometimes makes stupid. It's true. They have a quality. So how actually the Varnashrama system is divided, Kshatriyas? Principles of three modes of material nature. Which mode is Kshatriya? Rajas, right? It is Rajas, and Brahmanas are Sattva, and Vaishyas are mixture, and Shudras are even more, not even mixture, pure ignorance. Well, mixture is always material world, is mixture like this. So therefore, when we learn of those things of Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, we actually understand how interaction of those gunas happen, which are being personified into the Kshatriyas and Brahmanas. So here we see that the woman, first of all woman, the second one, Kshatriya woman, she follows the Brahmana. That means she has currently the quality of a passion, which was obviously stated. And she tries to follow the Brahmanical thing. What happens opposite side? When you have a woman, Kshatriya, and she Brahmana, and she marries the Kshatriya. It's completely unadvisable. It's pratiloma and anuloma, right? If you marry woman lower caste to higher or similar, it's advisable, it's good. Because you are lower nature and you try to follow higher. So if you are Brahmana woman, who is in a kind of a Brahminical status and the sattva guna, in goodness, and you try to follow husband who is not, what happens? You give up sattva guna and you dig into the whole thing. And the children will be in mixture, even less favorable. So therefore, the man has to be at least the same or higher level. Because the female nature is trying to follow it. So we have to understand those principles of man, female, always. So giving examples of the family life, we always kind of can identify, because this is the thing what happens around us. But we have to understand that beneath that is also a very important philosophical point. So the same verse, 24 and 5 in this same chapter, it says, the wife expected to be the same category of husband, as we talked about, similar nature. She must be prepared to follow the principles of the husband, and then she'll be very happy life. If the husband is a devotee and the wife is materialistic, there cannot be peace in a home. So how that thing we can understand? The husband is devotee and wife is materialistic. That means she will not follow husband. Because maybe she follows some daily routines, which is Vedic system perfectly done, that there's duties of wife, of cooking and looking after home and so on, having children. But if she will not value the principles of husband, she will not follow. She will be like a like a smart Brahmana, doing rituals without proper understanding, and she'll be impersonal. Because she does that, it's her nature. The nature came from the family. She looked at the mother, she looked at the family, and because brought up in that environment, she will do it. But not because she likes husband. Because ultimately, if there's no interaction in this level, then they said, Prabhupada, there's not going to be peace in the home. Wife must see the tendencies of the husband and must be prepared to follow him. So therefore, many times, even the marriage is proper if happens to be the man is so poor, he goes and lives in the house of a wife. What happens? He has to adopt the lifestyle of the woman, right? And she, as a woman, as a wife, she'll be living in the same environment and with a self-ego. There'll not be made any spiritual progress. So proper situation in the Vedic system is that the wife leaves the house and she goes to live with a husband. That's a proper also understanding. When we try apply the same principle to us as spiritual souls, if we want to progress spiritually, what's the basic thing? We have to go home to Godhead. So that means we leave our environment of materialistic life and we go live in a house, in an environment which is created by the male, by Krishna. That's an interesting principle. Weak man will produce the weak woman also. Or he'd say, he will not be looking for the strong. Since I can say exactly why the fighting in my family was. My mother was a strong person, very strong person. Somehow, in a female body, she was brought in a family of 2 daughters. And out of 2 daughters, one, the younger one, was in the kitchen, and the older one was outside with the animals and the building and stuff like that and cutting the hay. So she was kind of in a female body, but doing and associating with the father all the time. So she was a strong character, not a female character. So he couldn't cook, After 10 years of marriage, she can hardly cook 2 or 3 dishes. So therefore, there was not very much happy life, I can say. So negligent as such thing always produces, negligent of any nature, like woman's nature, will be always producing some problems. If you're negligent to the car, what happens? It breaks down. Yeah. If you're negligent to the cooking thing, it will burn something. So if you're negligent to the woman's nature as a man, there will always be problems. So all the problems are caused by negligence. Just yesterday there was class, day before, we were sitting and discussing about man being henpecked. You know the word henpecked? Henpecked. Hen is a chicken, And packed means like tick, 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 tick. So if a man is henpacked, that means somebody is pecking him, all the time. And usually a woman, his wife. So who is doing that? The woman is called henpecker. She is henpecker, right? So she's one. But basically it is, he's not having male features, And therefore, if he is too weak, then in order to balance happen, the role of the man has to be taken by the woman. So she becomes man, and because the roles are opposite, there'll be complete destruction, The proper man will never be handpacking his wife, Why was that? He'll be protecting. So proper woman in the male role should protect the husband, But because that's not the role, and that's the husband, it all goes upside down, therefore all the misbalance happening. That's the second point, properly understanding what is the male and female principles and how they interact. So one more thing is, a third point which I found myself interesting, that he, as a devotee, he shared the blessings. He shared his yogic powers with the wife. Yeah, he created the mansion. He created the daughters. Finally he created a son, so on. So a few verses later, also same chapter says, Prabhupada, what is the use of enjoyment other than the Lord's grace? So when you have some kind of benefit, the proper thing is to share it with someone. And if you are wife, you are sharing with children or neighbors. If you are husband, you're sharing with wife, and so on. If you are spiritual master, you are sharing with your disciples, and so on. If you are Krishna, you actually sharing everything. Krishna is so graceful, he shares everything he has with his living souls, with his expansions, with his living beings. So therefore, the sharing as such, it is important. And what was the result? The result of the sharing of the grace was said in 227th verse in the same chapter. The grace of the Lord is abhaya, freedom from fearfulness. So, if we understand properly the principle which came from the first thing, the situation, the sankarsana, if we understand that the whole creation is done by Krishna, we kind of lose our fear, because we understand that everything which is actually somehow so far creating and giving us trouble, it is still created by Krishna. So there is nothing besides Krishna and his energy. So therefore, receiving those benedictions, this was the main topic of this chapter of the Devahuti's lamentation, which is still coming up, that she didn't receive the proper benefit. Yes, she received the mansion, she received the daughters and so on, but she, at some stage, thanks to her, let's say, observant nature, which you women usually have, she can understand her husband is under protection of Krishna, under protection of Yoga Maya, directly at a very high level of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, she was lamenting, saying that, no, I received so many things which I desired according to my nature, but I didn't get the most important part which you value. Because of you leaving the me, which was the most beautiful thing, as I think, attractive woman, this is the first thing. Who was the Goswamis of Vrindavan? They were trying to stop him, and by giving him beautiful wife, I think Raghunath Das Goswami. They tried to marry him, so he stops his spiritual journey somewhere, but even that didn't work, so then all the other means were useless. So, I'm so beautiful, mansion is amazing, the description of the mansion is amazing. And still, you leave even Lord appears here as your son, and still you leave home. So why are you leaving it for? So it must be very important. I remember the story of philosophical stone, One guy came to the It was Rupa Goswami who was having the philosophical stone at his garbage bin. He came and said, "Well, here you have this philosophical stone which produces the gold." He said, yeah, it's somewhere in the pile of garbage there. And so, oh yes, my luck. Yeah, if you get the diamond somewhere lying around, why not? Take it. And he walked around and said, "What's going on?" I got what I desired, but the guy was just so cool, I take it. That means he has something better. So she was amazed, also Devahuti. Yeah. Prabhupada says a little bit later, when situated in a transcendental position regarding Kardamuni, one is freed from two kinds of material diseases, hankering and lamentation. So also the first thing was fearfulness, also hankering, lamentation. So she was hankering for something, but remember the example of Sudama Vipra? He didn't hanker for anything. He knew Krishna is a prince, he's king, he has thousands of palaces, and we went to the school together, and he didn't hanker for anything. Only because of his wife's advice he went to he even didn't come to the begging, he just brought his presents. So this is the Sattva Guna principle. When you have something, you share it as much as you have. So this is the third point. The fourth point, which is quite important, is that this is reflection of transcendental qualities. So yogic powers of Kardama Muni, couple of verses ago, was mentioned that when he created the whole mansion, he was amazed himself. Prabhupada says the modern scientists have achieved kind of little bit of a yogic powers, you become smaller than smaller and then bigger, smaller and smaller, and so small you can enter the stone. So Prabhupada said, when you dig the tunnel in a mountain, that's your yogic power already, flying. You get an airplane, it's already yogic powers. So yogic power is nothing so important. But still, those powers, when they happen, it's amazing. I just, a couple of years ago in Prague, in Czech, and I look at those beautiful king's palace made of sandstone, and I'm sure there's no people currently who could make such an amazing palace, 5,000... just stones put as a pyramid. Nothing, no artistic, just moving stones. We are amazed. How did they do it? But when Kardama created the whole palace, 7-level flying palace with all emeralds and stuff like that, he was amazed himself. He's like, wow, how is that happening? Here was that nice verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yadad vibhutimat sattvam shrimat urjita eva va tat eva gacchayatvam mam tejo mrisha svabham. Know that all opulent and beautiful, glorious creation springs by the spark of my splendor. So all these beautiful things, which was amazed in Kardama, who is a yogic, mystic power he is. In the first generation of Satya Yuga, he was amazed by other things. And Prabhupada says in the commentary, any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulence, whether it be in a spiritual or material world. Anything extraordinary, opulent, should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. And the commentary Prabhupada also mentions interesting. The Lord appeared in mortal world by his internal potency, Yogamaya. He came in his eternal form, which was suitable for the pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful, amazing, for everyone, even for those proud of opulence. Whatever opulence you have, and you're proud of it, even for them, those pastimes were amazing and attractive. And that includes Lord himself in his form in Lord of Vaikuntha. That means when Krishna performs his pastimes, even his own expansion in the Vaikuntha Lord, which is most opulent, there's no opulence is higher than the Vaikuntha. Even that expansion of the Lord in Vaikuntha, he's amazed, including him. So thus Krishna's transcendental body is ornaments of all ornaments. Yeah, that's the fourth point. And last point which we're going to discuss today, it's 10 minutes left. It is this slightly word, even slightly or little, which was mentioned in the beginning when they spent 100 years. That was the exactly thing. They were enjoying themselves by virtue of mystical powers. 100 autumns passed like a brief span of time, like a very little time. So this slight thing is quite important, which I understood from my kind of meditation, that actually the time which they spent 100 autumns were in Satya Yuga, right? So how long do people live in there? Who can remember Satya Yuga? Now, Kali Yuga, 100 years maximum. 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years. So when you take 100,000 years lifespan and you spend enjoying yourself 100 years, how much is that? Calculating in human lifetime, how much would be?
10 years.
No.
We had this calculation yesterday. 10th of a year.
Tenth of the year, exactly. And 10th of the year is like a little bit more than a month. So from our calculation, they were enjoying only 1 month, a little bit more. Not much. So this is a principle. When you go to the higher planets, it is not so amazing.
Meditation, this was the calculation yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Not so much, comparatively. So, and Prabhupada definitely said, when you go to the Brahma Loka, which the lifetime is like trillions and zillions of years, the feeling of such thing as your length of lifetime is still 100 years. Because we say Brahma lives 100 years. According to the calculation of humans, it's billions and trillions, but he lives 100 years. So from calculation of bugs who live for 1 day, our lifetime is also like how many? 1 day multiplied by 300, by year, by 100 years. How many lifetimes of the 1 day bug? Our lifetime is long, but still a thing. Just a couple of days ago, on the 1st December, my mother had a birthday. Actually, Devaki Mataji also. She has the birthday on the 1st December. So I spoke on her phone, and one of the things she was talking, and she said, it's quite interesting. How close is the end? Yeah, she's 84. And her mother, my grandmother, she lived 87. Quite a long, more than usual. And she was thinking, it's amazing how close is the end, So the feeling depends on what you are in the beginning of lifetime or end of lifetime. It's still, you understand, it's going to be thing. Of course, you don't think in a young age, when you're 12 or 15. You just think about some other things, how life is amazing, what am I going to achieve, and so on. But the time comes and you see an end. And basically, Prabhupada once also said, interesting example of a guy who comes to Vrindavan or Mayapur. If you come here for 1 month for Kartik or for some pilgrimage, you're not going to start whole incense business there because you're going to leave it in 1 month. You cannot do it. In 1 month, you cannot start and hold and produce and everything like whole incense business. You cannot do in 1 month. So you just come here for spiritual benefit. So basically, even we live the 100 years coming in the material world, it is important that the main part is not too much dig into the whole these temporary businesses. Therefore, the temporary time is is important. So little thing interesting. Also, the same Sanskrit word was also mentioned in the third canto when who was the Hiranyaksha, he hit the chest of Lord and hit in such a manner by demon of Vidura. The Lord who appeared as a first boar, he did not feel a last quaking thing on his body any more than the elephant would be struck by the flowers. So sometimes the Sanskrit words are quite interesting. What do you compare? Sometimes you compare the whole material world when you become spiritually inclined or devotional as a small pedal, not bigger than the print of the hoof print of the cow. So these things are important. So I think one last quote which I like to read, also about little being. It's a prayers from gopis. I think so. Yeah, 10th canto. O beloved, your all auspicious appearance vanquishes a distress of those living in the Vrajas forest. Our minds long your association. Please give us a little bit of that medicine which counteracts the disease in your devotees' hearts. According to Acharyas, Prabhupada says in commentary, according to Acharyas, gopis repeatedly entered Lord Krishna and entreat Lord Krishna, entreats like prayer, to place his lotus feet on their breasts. The gopis were victims of material lust, but rather they were absorbed in pure love of God and thus went to serve Lord Krishna's lotus feet by offering the beautiful breasts to him. Materialist persons who are victims of mundane sex desires will not be able to understand those conjugal dealings take place on a pure spiritual platform, and that is materialists. Great misfortune. So when we discuss just one verse taken out of context and things like, it's a mundane thing, having children, okay, 9 children at once, okay, cool, unusual, triplets is good, but 9 children at once and so on. So it's a kind of what to do with the spiritual advancement. So therefore, if we follow the Srimad Bhagavatam story as such, we understand that as a materialist, we will not understand the beauty of things. Because if we understand like comparison, yogic powers of Kardama were able to create the whole palace. Then later on, by his blessings or by his desires, or say, the Lord himself appeared in his family, that means even more amazing, more unusual thing. But after all, later on will be described by Kapila Dev himself that the living being is only taking shelter. So if we think I created the children, that would be quite ignorance. The living being is taking shelter in the womb of the person. So although Kardama had his son appeared as the Lord himself, the dissension is amazing. So if we remain materialists, that will be our greatest misfortune, since we cannot understand the pastimes of the Lord, which are amazing, as we told before, as amazing for even Lord in Vaikuntha. So any materialist looking at those pastimes think, okay, maybe some mystical powers, nothing special. And that is our impersonal disease, which here has been prayed by gopis. Please give us a drop of your mercy so we can get rid of this materialistic disease. Okay. Rounding up the class, I can remind the first 5 points which I mentioned. The first was a company that anything in our lives cannot happen without association. We need a company, we need a person with the same desires, And devotee association, therefore, is essential. You have to understand, second point, which is real man, well, woman, and what's the proper interactions. A third point is, whatever we have to share the blessings or get the blessings of those who can share the blessings. Everything around us, directly, indirectly, is a reflection of transcendental. And last one is experiencing a tiny part of reality. Yes. Even 100 autumns, or whatever it is, by them, or even 1 month completely enjoyment, it just flies away. Because time eats up everyone except those who are devotees. So whatever experience we're trying to squeeze from material existence, it will be always tiny compared to the source of spiritual bliss, which is coming directly from Krishna. So, thank you very much. Any questions, comments, please? I think I told you one funny story about Mataji's coming to the Mayapur. Bhakti Purna Swami told that there was one Mataji, very beautiful, extremely beautiful. She came to Mayapur, and 2 brahmacharis were somehow discussing. He overheard them discussing that, okay, it doesn't matter, it's still blood and pus and everything, and it's like this. Another brahmachari said, yes, you're right, but that thing is in proper quantity, in proper places. So, seeing Mataji as a body is always unavoidable. So brahmachari is looking and the features are attractive. But the question is, why the mind is attracted? Because there is no higher attraction. So for the person who is spiritually attracted to the interactions, to activities, the body itself will be definitely less important. That's one more important thing. That the shape itself looks so attractive until we have a high attraction. So therefore, next level, what we want to we want to be attracted by the interactions. What's attractive in Mataji's? They're humble, they're serving you. Or there can be a little bit of fighting. There was a story in Soho Street. I think there was I cannot say it, one of the temple commander and head pujari. Let's say there was definitely a story, I've been told, that there was 2 of the head departments, and they were fighting like 2 dogs, dog and cat. But not for long. And after 2 months, they got married. So you can be attracted to the humble attitude and service for yourself, or you want to be attracted by the fighting also. It doesn't matter. This is same thing, just opposite things, But unless you see a person as a reflection or particle of Krishna's energy, that would be lacking in anything, Either we are attracted by bodily features, or we are attracted by the mental disposition, and so on, because, the demeanor, the mood of Madhis are more sweet, as we told. Man usually tough, That's why we are lacking for emotional support. If we need emotional support, the interaction with Mataji will be unavoidable. If you find the same emotional support from spiritual masters, from scriptures, from service, that will make you immune to the attraction to the Matajis. That's the first point of brahmachari life. Brahmachari life, he is where his concentration is, on a scripture, on austerity, on a spiritual master. If he can do it forever, ideal. You don't have to be married. So, but at one point, you have to be also honest, because from previous lives, from current life, there is some impressions, there is some scars, there's some association, some hidden desires which come up in certain times. When a kid is 2 years old, he isn't thinking about the girls. He thinks about playing and food and stuff like that. But when the age comes, 12, 14, 16, like that, he just like, wow, there's opposite sex as such. So also in any time as a brahmachari, when he has to face his own honest situation, and then he understands he wants that or not. Even Cardamom Muni, he was, first generation, second generation of Brahmas, just most exalted personalities. At the same time, we understand if you end up in the material world, there was some kind of misdirection, some misattraction. Yeah. You were a little bit of distracted by material energy. If you didn't focus completely to the spiritual Krishna service, then ended up in the material world. So we all ended up in the material world. That means we all have distracted from Krishna's service by material things, one more, one less. So if you can cope with those distractions, then it's good. If you cannot, then you have to deal with them and in a regulated manner fulfill those desires. So it's always, the spiritual vision is always first. Krishna always gives, Govinda Dev gave the class, please do that. If you cannot do this, do this. If you cannot do that, do that. Yeah. So always brahmachari life is striving for the perfection, for staying brahmachari forever, if you can. If you're honest enough in the beginning, yes, said, I will be brahmachari for 3 years. Okay, that's it's okay. It's a training, you understand, in the beginning. If you in the beginning you don't have this inclination, well, that you take a time. So looking at Mataji's always will be good. Well, first of all, Mataji's mother, you see yourself most experienced in a woman's environment with your sister and mother. So you look at the Mataji's as a future mother also, which is like kind of a little bit of unusual when you call the small girls even Mataji, and she's 5 years old and you call Mataji. She's future mother too. From that point of view, it's also interesting. But ultimate immunity to the attraction would be spiritual vision, which has to be developed slower or faster. And as faster you get to the proper vision, which comes from association with those who have. So if you want to be strong brahmachari, you have to associate with strong brahmacharis. It's no other way. You cannot be brahmachari alone. If you are brahmachari alone, then okay, there is one option. You create more brahmacharis around you, like book distributor. If you are distributing books alone and you feel attracted, then you make few more distributors, and you have a van with 3, 4, and you have association, one of 2. So it's the only thing. And ultimately, we have to see the female energy as a Krishna's energy. He's enjoyed. Otherwise, we are like a Kamsa. We want to steal Sita from Rama. You want to steal? No? You want to steal, Mati? From Rama, Don't want to. That's Sita sitting. She's Sita. She's the energy of Krishna. So if we are trying to steal for our own enjoyment, we are Ravanas. If we understand that she's serving Krishna and we helping her to serve Krishna, then it's proper attitude. So for brahmacharya, same thing. If you try to see her as an object of enjoyment, that will be misleading yourself in a ditch, material existence. If you see she is serving Krishna and I can help her, that will be proper, whatever it is. Next life she may be man, who knows? Yes.
Because you addressed me, because he asked for brahmachari, I have to interact with Sita energy.
Yeah, but you don't want to steal, right?
I think that brahmachari doesn't look forward the opportunity to interact with Sita energy.
You don't look, but mind does.
Huh?
You don't look, but mind does. Mind has a habit. Until the mind is materially inclined, it will have this inclination.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and everyone who has thing is you can deal with it, or you have to express yourself. One of two.
The brahmachari doesn't look forward to the opportunity. Doesn't mean he goes to the prashad.
Well, that means he's planning to get married in 20 years, maybe. That means he's looking forward.
Yeah, but as a brahmachari, you don't have, you don't look forward. I mean, you don't think, oh, I go to the kirtan because the Mataji's are there, or I go in prashadam room because there I see this particular Mataji.
Well, there's different levels of brahmachari. I can
No,
promise.
that's not a brahmachari. And then the question is, so how I should interact with women as a brahmachari is, you don't look forward to interact with them, and if there's an interaction, you try to serve them.
Yes,
to get
that was the point.
Because
Yeah,
the blessings, you only, Mataji give you blessings, then you can stay brahmachari.
exactly.
If you lose the blessings of the Mataji's, then...
But why you lose the blessings? Because you want to enjoy. That's
Yeah,
why you
they
lose
feel it.
blessings.
Mataji's are much more sensitive.
Yes,
You,
yeah.
they know when you're ready to marry, they know. You don't know. They know.
But if you're ready to marry, then who gives you blessings? They don't give you blessings.
No, they
Who gives you blessings to get married?
give you curse.
They give you a curse to marry to other mother. Okay, a curse, you get married to her.
I saw this many times where lady said, this brahmachari, because he's so judgmental,
Yeah.
we curse him that he get a very tough match.
Yeah. So.
Stay brahmachari and he get...
Well, that's the thing. If you don't want to learn easy way, you learn tough way. Since brahmacharis around you will teach you soft way. But if you get a tough wife like that with a character, she will not ask you that gently. She will bully you around. You'll be handpicked brahmachari. That's true. And if you are gentle and sensitive, then you'll get a gentle and sensitive Mataji. That was the point. As you character are yourself, you'll get your female counterpart, expansion.
Yeah, but this is also something what we have to learn in our ISKCON society, because sometimes as a brahmachari you have to be how you call it?
Ruffian?
Ruffian. You have to be ruffian.
Wow.
Forward to women that shows you're not interested if you're rough. No, I mean this is not what we have in our ISKCON society, what comes around. But if we have to teach that actually a brahmachari is very gentle.
Gentle,
Very
yeah.
gentleman.
Exactly.
Then he gets the blessing as well.
Because ruffian, he is the same principle of attraction and this, like rejection. That means, like a school kids in a, year 5 in a school, what they do with the girls, they pull their hair, yeah. But it's attraction, and the same thing, If you are not attracted, so it's like prerequisite for the spiritual advancement. You don't have to be too much attracted and too much averse to material world. If you are too much hate material world, you also cannot spiritually advance. Both things, if you are too much attracted or too much averse, it's the same thing. It has to be kind of a little bit of a neutral position, not so much. Then there would be.
Kamsa was attracted to Krishna.
He was too much to Krishna?
Kamsa, yeah, of course.
Attracted to Krishna.
Meditating the whole time about Krishna.
Not in favorable way.
That's the thing. A brahmachari who is the whole time speaking of bad on women and this and that, and
He's still meditating,
Don't go there, otherwise you get married.
Yeah.
He is attractive, but he's not favorable.
Yeah. But
And then when he get married, he has a whole misconception to deal with,
Right.
because he thinks that the woman is still the enemy.
I don't know where this idea comes from, I don't know. Because his mother was not enemy. In which stage brahmachari comes to the conclusion that woman is enemy?
Because he's teached like this.
By whom? By the similar nonsense,
By the
man.
senior brahmachari.
By senior nonsense brahmachari.
Sannyasis, yes, that's true.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Well, I don't know. in which stage in ISKCON, because early stage Prabhupada gave blessings that the married couples go to London and so on. At some stage it was the mistranslation of Prabhupada's intention. You can read some verse and saying like this, and like family life is just Maya, ditch, You can find things like that. So it means everything connected to family life, which creates family life, which is woman, it means that it's a Maya, it's a little illusion, Where is that? But that has to be taken in context. Then you can understand. But you can always, this is our limited vision. You can take one statement of Prabhupada and just twist it around according to our all material conditions. Even the machis in family life. Yes. Yeah. No, he got an answer. That's it. So it seems so. Jai. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Pralahad Lakshmi Nrsimhadev ki jai.